extension as one of the key areas that we would look at. So with that introduction, it's an appropriate time now for me to hand over to Con Liviniasis. And if you look at he's our national chair in agribusiness. He's also been a national treasurer for Australian India Business Council for many years, and has a really dedicated person in promoting trade and investment, and of course, as the chair of our agribusiness chapter. So over to you, Con.
Thank you, Jim. Before I welcome all of our honoured speakers, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to all of our speakers and viewers today to the 5th AIBC Agribusiness Chapter webinar on Is Agriculture 4.0 Shaping the Future of AgriTech? To ensure that we keep to the tight schedule, each speaker and their bio slide will be introduced one at a time by Jim. Our sponsor for this webinar is State Bank of India, which offers a wide range of services such as deposits, remittances, trade finance solutions, and syndicated loans. The Australian India Business Council was founded in 1986, as Jim said, and is the only national body representing bilateral trade and investment relations between Australia and India. AIBC has developed national industry chapters which will assist in addressing specific bilateral industry issues, such as in my sector of agribusiness. Practical, mutually beneficial trade and investment opportunities between Australia and India were given a big boost through the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or Quad, on top of the Morrison-Modi Virtual Summit of 2020. Recent international economic jolts have highlighted the need for businesses in Australia and India to forge closer ties. Whilst COVID-19 has changed the way we do business, it has not changed the way we think and develop ideas. It is more a case of less travel and more homegrown thinking. Agriculture 4.0 marks the adoption of digital technologies for increasing agricultural production and farm incomes. Climate change, global population explosion, and food security has forced the industry to seek innovative approaches that enhance production with lesser impact to the environment. This is where AgriTech, or technology-driven agriculture, comes into play. AgriTech has unleashed the digital wave that has revolutionised the face of agriculture to deliver sustainable and profitable food production. The new era of agriculture, Agriculture 4.0, is witnessing the augmentation of this manpower-driven system with information and communication technology to achieve higher food production using fewer resources. Agriculture 4.0 marks the digitalisation of food and agriculture systems using AI, Internet of Things, automation and other technologies to create a hyper-connected network of farms, machines and factories that result in optimisation of both food production and consumption. Our first speaker today is Mr. Karthik Jayaraman, President and co-founder of Wakul Foods and Products in Chennai, India, which is one of India's fastest growing agri-tech companies. Today, Karthik will address us on automation and digitalisation of agri-commerce compliance supply chains. Our second speaker today is Dan Winson, Managing Director of Zetify, which provides rural connectivity solutions for voice, video, and internet. Today, Dan will address us on technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our third speaker will be Sachin Zagati, Managing Director and CEO of Margadasha Centre for Agribusiness Development in Pune, India, who will address us on AgriTech enabling journey of Indian agriculture towards agribusiness. Our fourth and final speaker today is Kim Russell, co-owner of Russell Agricultural Consulting, and also the chair and principal consultant of the Stump Jump Foundation in Australia, who will address us on AgriTech and the dynamic data dilemma. In a world that is increasingly digitally connected by the Internet of Things, data becomes a critical asset. Internet of Things provides the entire agribusiness supply chain with faster and better insights from real-time data that enables the sector to make smarter and more agile decisions. Add artificial intelligence, which is a very general term to describe different levels of machine learning techniques and algorithms that help us either understand the world better and or to provide machines with capabilities to quickly know the world and make decisions or take actions based on that knowledge. AI has the ability to disrupt and digitize the supply chain of knowledge in the agriculture sector in the next decade. Whilst COVID-19 has changed operational strategies, the Australian-India Business Council and its new commercial arm, the Business Enterprise, will continue with determination to promote and facilitate bilateral trade on a business-to-business basis between Australia and India. Only in the past 2 weeks, the Honourable Tony Abbott, a past Prime Minister of Australia, as a special trade envoy of the current Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, visited India and met with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and high-ranking ministers in the Modi government. The outcome was very clear. They spoke of an early harvest, which means let's work on trade policies that we both agree will have mutual significant benefit that can be quickly implemented. The Australia-India Business Council and its new commercial arm, the Business Enterprise, supports the early harvest approach. So keep in touch with us for further updates, as there are clear signs of a significant positive shift in the Australia-India relationship, and we welcome all trade inquiries from our viewers and other interested parties. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks very much, Con, and also thank you for chairing ARBC Business Enterprises as well. I think it's a really good combination. So without further ado, I'll call on Mr. Karthik Yaraman, the President of Wacool Foods and Products, as his profile comes onto the screen. And you can see from his profile that he is very well equipped today to address us. He's got an excellent background that takes you through the area of agribusiness and how it might move with startups. So over to you, Mr. Karthik.
Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to share our thoughts on the AgriTech space and specifically the agri-commerce space in this forum. AgriTech comprises many elements, the first being agri-inputs or agri-advisory services, agri-value chain financing, and agri-commerce. Agri-commerce is the bridge between the farmer's output and the customer. Wacool is a 6-year-old startup that has focused on the agri-commerce space, bridging the gap between a farmer and their output and the consumer. Next slide, please. India has a very large supply chain for food. We are one of the largest producers of food across all categories. However, our supply chain is quite inefficient. The reason for this inefficiency is the length of our supply chain, where we have between 5 and 11 intermediaries who procure from the farmer and move it all the way up to a consumer. The reason we have so many intermediaries is, number one, the size of our farms. The average Indian farm is only 2.5 acres, and that produces very small quantities. We need layers of consolidation to be able to fill a truck, which is the economic transport unit. Similarly, our shops are small as well. We buy from over 12 million grocery stores that are spread across 674,000 cities, towns, and villages. We buy small quantities frequently by walking down to the neighborhood store. And that means that full truck of produce needs to be broken down into very small quantities. This results in a number of steps between the farmer and the consumer. If it's a processed product like grains or staples, the number of steps are even more because you've got folks who store, folks who process, and folks who pack the produce. The impact of all of this is, number one, very low remuneration for the farmer compared to what the consumer pays. Number two, a significant amount of food waste because the produce is being repetitively handled. And number three, very high volatility of prices because the farmer does not know what the ultimate demand is. Demand is inelastic, but production is highly volatile. And as a result, the risk in this space is very, very high. Three things have changed in India, however, in the past 2 decades. We have much better road systems. We're able to reach farms directly in our trucks rather than by farm tractor or using animals. The democratization of data. Every farmer has a cell phone, and many of our farmers have smartphones as well. And the digitization of money, which makes it possible for us to transfer money digitally to farmers rather than physically. Next slide, please. Waycool has built a new model wherein we're able to procure directly from farmers, move the produce or products through our collection and distribution centers, and deliver these products and produce to a large network of retailers across southern India. This supply chain rides on a seamlessly integrated technology platform that enables customers to place orders by themselves, our sales force to go and take orders from our customers digitally, and seamlessly transfers this information back to our farm-facing executives, who are in turn able to procure seamlessly as well. It also gives real-time visibility into how the produce or product moves through our supply chain, and this allows for real-time planning. The benefits of this direct supply chain are very high fill rates to our customers, a 25% reduction in wastage, and a 15 to 30% earnings boost to our farmers because of the elimination of repetitive intermediation, handling, wastage, and other factors. Next slide, please. The supply chain deals not just with fresh produce, but also milk and staples, and therefore offers a full basket of solutions to our customers as well as our farmers, thus making it an integrated offering and therefore valuable and sticky to both ends of the supply chain, be it the farmer or the consumer. Next slide, please. What we've built is a comprehensive full technology stack for agri-commerce that enables this. At the farm end, we have My Farm, which is our farmer engagement platform. At the heart of the supply chain is Rapid, which is our planning, processing, and warehouse automation solution. For our field sales force, use Garuda, which is a distribution management solution. And our customers directly, which are small retailers, directly place orders on us through Pragati Direct, which is a customer-facing app. All of these are individually scalable platforms with an integrated backend and a single database of which they work. Each one of them is powered by an AI and ML-enabled decision engine that solves for a specific problem that each of these stakeholders face. And each of these has further expansion scope in terms of additional technology offerings. Next slide, please. The way this works is the following. Our customers open up the self-service app and decide to place orders. For example, if they need fresh produce for the next day's delivery, they simply place an order based on what's visible to them. And what's visible to them is the stock that's available and the stock that's in transit. And therefore, they're guided to make their orders. Many of our customers may not be tech literate, in which case we have field sales force who are powered by the Garuda app, who go on preset beats to take the same orders. The Garuda platform has this beat planning enabled and has the order taking capability enabled. These orders flow into Rapid, which is our decision engine. Rapid captures the trends from these orders, makes forecasts, and plays the forecast to our farmers. It also captures the market prices through an independent benchmarking tool and sets the target price to our farmers, against which the farmers express their interest. The moment farmers express their interest, a purchase order is sent to them, and they come to our collection centers and deliver against these purchase orders. The moment the produce is delivered, the produce is traceable. It is integrated into our system, and it is immediately visible to the planning engine, saying so much of material is coming from so many farmers. Thus, the planning engine knows exactly what's coming into the supply chain and what is the demand from the customers, and is able to make real-time decisions. Naturally, farms face uncertainty, and they may not be able to harvest what a consumer wants. We still have the option to take alternative sourcing throughout this process and make sure the customer's fill rates are met. All of these are sitting on top of SAP S/4HANA, which is the state-of-the-art ERP system, as we all know. This offers tremendous amount of controls and heavy-duty analytics because of in-memory computing that helps us take accelerated decisions throughout the supply chain. Next slide, please. At each stage, the technology that's available straddles the complete cycle. At the farming stage, our tech provides the farmers with forecasts. The farmers can use AI-based disease identification through our app. They get benchmark data. They can bid against our requirement as a company. They can track the movement of their vehicles. They can track the quality the quality ratings that we provided to them based on our grading. And finally, they can track their payments. All of this is available on a single application platform. If you move to the next slide, please. In the supply chain, as I was describing, our rapid engine has multiple capabilities. One is, of course, the planning and forecasting. But in addition, when a farmer delivers their material, we automatically get an advance shipment notice to the respective distribution center where that material is headed. When the material reaches the warehouse, it is automatically inwarded. It is mapped against a customer order and automatically allocated and then shipped out. This ensures very little errors in terms of supply chain management and very little stock that is required in the supply chain while delivering high fill rates. Next slide, please. On the front end, the distribution management system covers everything from order taking to bid planning to delivery tracking to receivables management. Our customers can simply open the app and know how much they owe us and pay us real-time digitally as well. So the idea here is to have a completely integrated tech platform where people can simply plug in and perform their roles, and the engine drives the entire supply chain. Next slide, please. This is necessary but not sufficient because the product that we're dealing with is a physical good. What we've also done is to build physical automation of the supply chain. We use more of robots and decision-making devices rather than manual labor, which is the common practice in this space. Quality grading is done through AI-led grading of grains and pulses, for example, rather than manual grading or using of judgment while grading. Machines are used for packing and sorting of material. All of these had to be developed by in-house, and we own the IPR for all of this because at Indian cost structures, the equipment is not available. We've had to build all of this completely in-house. And all of this technology is integrated into our tech stack. So this isn't a standalone network of machines. They're all completely integrated into the tech stack. The benefit is that we operate at a 50% higher productivity than competitors. Our warehouses process 3 times as much goods and at 3 times the speed of what a traditional warehouse operates. Next slide, please. In addition, the company has taken on a mandate to make sure that we go to net zero faster and drive our farmer network into regenerative farming. So we've identified elements of value creation across the value chain, starting from regenerative farming at the farm end to electric vehicles and other transportation methods, and also reduction of the food miles during the logistics phase, and switching to green energy during the processing phase. In addition, we've also got small rural women entrepreneurs to do a lot of the value addition and processing rather than us do it ourselves, therefore creating social impact. Next slide, please. To drive the technology that we've built, we've partnered with a large number of technical as well as commercial partners. And we realized that all of the tech cannot be developed in-house, and therefore we're stitching together this network of partners to build out what we need. Next slide, please. In the past 6 years, we've built what is today India's largest agri-commerce platform. We deal with a base of 100,000 customers and a base of 70,000 farmers. More than 65% of our product is directly sourced from farms. We source from over 72 locations and distribute across 6 states of southern India. We're just getting started. We believe that it's possible to build a business that's about 20 times larger than what we've built already, and we're headed down that path. In this journey, we will be taking the tech platform to the next level, incorporating more of decision systems and AI to make sure that it is even more seamless and frictionless as we go forward. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me, and I'm happy to take questions at the end of the presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Karthik. Thank you for that very, very impressive presentation, particularly looking at the supply chain, transforming it with artificial intelligence applications, looking at individual scalability, bringing robotics. I like the 3 E's, use of green energy, encouraging women entrepreneurship, and creating, of course, the largest agribusiness platform. I think that's very impressive as you're moving forward. And what a good backdrop for our next speaker. who of course is Dan Winson, the CEO and founder of ZetiFil. And you can see Dan is a good follow through, as he also is into wireless networking company up in New South Wales, and is looking at giving farmers better internet and voice connectivity. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Jim. Good day. I'm Dan Winson, founder and CEO of Zetify. Yes, as Jim said, we're a wireless networking company solving connectivity problems for farmers and other people in regional, rural and remote areas. Next slide, please. Only about a third of Australia's landmass has reliable mobile coverage, and outside of the metropolitan areas, the options for fast broadband are really quite limited, and this has a massive impact on farmers and on the agriculture supply chain. Next slide. I started Zetify in 2017 because as a wireless network engineer living and working in a rural area, I was very aware of the problem, and I was also fortunate to be in a position to do something about it. Our team's grown to 15 people in the last few years, and we're still here in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, still working on designing, building, deploying and supporting off-grid optimized long-range Wi-Fi repeaters to provide the high bandwidth connectivity that farmers need to run their businesses and make use of emerging AgTech solutions. Slide, please. We give farmers options for better internet and better voice connectivity to their houses, to their sheds, yards, vehicles, machinery, right across their farm. And using hardware that we've designed and built from the ground up to be tough, reliable, and easy to install and use. Slide, please. Now, of course, AgTech isn't a new concept. Farmers have been using technology forever. The latest generation of AgTech is bringing things like autonomous machinery, software that's underpinned by massive data sets that makes use of AI algorithms to make better decisions that impact farms in huge ways. And of course, there's the Internet of Things. All of these technologies are set to change the industry in massive ways. And at Zetify, we're betting very heavily that the adoption of autonomous vehicles in particular will be off the charts within the next few years, and that this will drive further demand for the farm-wide connectivity that our technology provides. Slide. For today, I want to talk about how COVID-19 has accelerated the adoption of technology and what this might mean for the future of ag and AgTech industries. Slide. In short, COVID-19 has pushed a heap of technologies through the hype cycle, past the trough of disillusionment into the mass market. Slide. Now, we've all been sitting around waiting for the amazing paperless office. We've been waiting for our 3D screens and augmented reality. These technologies have shown promise, but they haven't made it through the trough of disillusionment. We've seen pilots, we've seen opportunities to test these things, and early adopting engineering nerdy types like myself have played with these technologies, but they're not out there in the mass market yet. COVID's starting to change that, at least for some of these technologies. Slide, please. Not necessarily in the way we thought. However, the necessity for remote working and of course remote education has been underpinned by a whole stack of technologies, from video conferencing, other remote collaboration and communication tools. And it's made those technologies accelerate the adoption of those technologies. And really, they're now in near universal use, at least in places where they've got the connectivity needed to make them work. Estimates suggest that 40 to 60% of the workforce have been working from home, and many of these people are expected to continue doing so even once we get this pandemic under control. According to the United Nations, during the first 2 months of COVID-19, over 190 countries and more than 1.5 billion students were impacted by partial or complete closures of their schools, universities, or campuses. Slide. As you can see in this chart, there's significant long-term trends towards increased delivery of digitally enabled service exports. We're predicting that the post-COVID-19 economy will see this accelerate further, thanks to these companies having to invest in technology. So during the pandemic, hardware investment has increased in 41% of companies. Communication software has increased so far by 23%. Collaboration software is up by 19%, and faster internet connectivity is up by 9%. So this is a huge impact. It's unprecedented. And while the cause of it is incredibly sad, as an industry, we need to be aware of what's happening, and we need to make the most of the opportunities that this situation brings about. Next slide. We're not the only one who's predicting this. As you can see, investors in the Australian stock market are thinking, you can see what they're seeing, what they're thinking pretty clearly here. Technology is increasingly important and bringing increased opportunities to capture value. And that's reflected in these, the comparison of the digital technology sector against the general market. Next slide. Okay, so for agriculture and ag tech, what does this all mean? According to CSIRO, digital technology will play an essential role in identifying where and how to change food distribution systems to open up new opportunities for Australian farmers. Other food manufacturing, packaging, logistics, and tracking technologies will help Australian agriculture produce reach distant buyers cost effectively, as well as increase domestic supply. Now, while we need to remain aware of different technologies' readiness for the mass market, there's no doubt in our minds that COVID is driving adoption of ag tech. Next slide. It's also creating opportunities for startups, scale-ups, and enterprises to launch new solutions. Farmers are having trouble sourcing labor. The digital literacy is increasing rapidly, and the need to use data to make better decisions is being widely acknowledged, not just by thought leaders, but by the mass market. Next slide. In the end, the adoption rates of these new technologies are going to be driven by the same things that always have. Does the technology increase the profit, reduce the cost, or save time, or does it decrease risk? Farmers have got farms to run. They're not going to adopt technology just for the sake of it. Slide. You can see from this graph the difference between the adoption of auto steer versus some of the other promising but non-critical technologies. Auto steer directly impacts the farmer's bottom line by being able to use low-cost labor to steer their tractor and by being able to drive their tractors for longer. And that's why people have adopted it. It took some time, but it's been a rapid adoption, and now it's near universal in the Australian market. Slide. Zedify is working with dozens of ag tech startups, scale-ups, and enterprises, and everyone seems optimistic about the future of digital agriculture. We're also seeing increased collaboration between these companies, which we believe is critical to the sector's success. Slide. The other thing that we think is critical to the success of digital agriculture, both in Australia and around the world, is increased digital inclusion. Slide. So digital inclusion is about giving everyone who needs it access to the connectivity they need and the skills they need to make use of that access to connectivity and to that digital information. In 2020, digital inclusion in Australia is 7.6 points higher in capital cities than in rural areas. Good news that this gap is narrowing, and as new technologies like the low Earth orbit satellites and affordable long-range Wi-Fi become available, this gap will continue to narrow, and the benefits of digital agriculture will be made available to more and more farmers. Slide. Solutions like our ZediCell are providing a viable alternative to cellular connectivity in low population density areas, and the demand for connectivity for ag tech and for agribusiness has never been greater. We're looking forward to working with the ag tech ecosystem, both in Australia and internationally, to keep developing better solutions together so that we can get more farmers connected and more people connected in rural and remote areas. Slide. I'm Dan Winson. I'm the founder and CEO of Zedify. I look forward to taking your questions at the end of the webinar. Please enjoy the next speakers. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very much, Dan, and also for introducing a new word, digital inclusion, which is what we're doing today as well, which is very good. But I really thought it was very encouraging to see the serendipity between Mr. Karthik's presentation and yours in relation to the technology, the large range of Wi-Fi, the ag tech evolution, autonomous vehicles, looking at the acceleration of COVID, of technology with COVID-19, and the really excellent way you both are looking at remote working with video and conferencing, and the very interesting statistic that 40 to 60% of the workforce will actually be working from home post-COVID. that figure has also been quoted in some other circles. But I think what's also exciting is the importance of technology and of course the era of digital agriculture that you have foreshadowed, right up from logistics to startups to scale ups. I think is a very good message, and again a very good backdrop for our next speaker, Mr. Sachin Zagade, who is the Managing Director and CEO of Margadashek Center for Agribusiness Development, looking at the enablement of AgriTech. So over to you, Mr. Sachin.
Yeah, thank you, Jim, and I'm really very thankful to AIBC for giving me an opportunity to put forward my thoughts for the space and potential that exists in the Indian agribusiness. Since we have started actually the Margadashek Center for Agribusiness Development that we have been running out of Pune since 2014. Before taking up this opportunity, actually we surveyed a lot in others. We were just looking forward for the space that exists in the Indian agribusiness, and then we found actually two very critical points that we should be very optimistic about. The one is the product validation, and the second is process validation. Now, as we all know, the India has always been a agriculture economy, and we have almost 44% of our population engaged directly or indirectly in Indian agriculture. But somehow we have been dealing with the various types of challenges at the same time. I mean, we have the challenges of handling the post-harvest quantities that we get actually once we have the post-harvest done of various types of agriculture produce. So with the vision of hand-holding the startups and helping them out to adopt the technologies to take care of their produce post-harvest. And then at the same time, we have been taking the idea of AgriTech to various sections of the agriculture to make them more competitive. So I'll be taking you all through the same. Next slide, please. Here I will be talking about the future of Indian agribusiness and the journey which has started actually towards agribusiness. We were the agriculture economy and aspiring to be an agribusiness economy in the days to come. And I have got very exciting trends actually over here to show all of you how the Indian agribusiness is poised for growth. Next slide, please. Yeah, here I have got the agribusiness trend number one that we foresee will play a great role in the future of Indian agribusiness, that talks about the precision agriculture. And this will be the norm even among smallholders across the sowing and harvesting value chain. And this is what we have kept as a vision 2030. Okay, and if we have a look at the journey that Indian agriculture has experienced when it comes to the decision making. And let us have a look at 1990s when we as an Indian agriculture started the mechanization of various sort of activities, which were power heavy activities, which includes you have a tilling, harvesting, threshing. We started making use of tractors, tillers, and harvesters. And then in mid 90s, we started adopting the mechanization for input application. Now, you all are very aware about that the Indian agriculture in farmers were using the open irrigation or flood irrigation systems were there. Then we started adopting the drip irrigation. And by the time mass was not ready for accepting how can we grow the crop by drop, we were actually very much familiar with the flood irrigations. And then slowly and steadily, I mean, the central government and various state governments across India started subsidizing the usage of drip irrigation technologies, and then farming community started coming forward. And there is always a challenge actually putting forward the new technologies to any masses. Then 2010 onwards, actually, it was quite very excellent time in Indian agribusiness when we had Mahalnobis National Crop Research Center, which was set up and that started using the satellite data and remote sensing for yield prediction, drought prediction, and the crop insurance down the district level. And it was the start of the usage of technology in the agriculture. And if you see in 2021, we are expecting the launch of 5G. And if you see the way the farmers have been taking decisions to grow the crops in India, it is most of the experience driven. We have a lot many farmers actually having been hand-holding on field. And when we go and meet them up and try understanding what is the basis that they take the decisions, when to apply the water, how much to apply, why to apply. Then in case of input applications, consider there is a farmer having an orchard of a grape. He has got various types of activities to be undertaken. Right from fertilizer application to the application of pesticides and fungicides. So most of the times, he's been taking decisions after the onset of disease or pesticide. There is no any technology that helps him out in taking decision in advance, which would rather reduce his cost of production. So the usage of IoT is helping them out in taking the right decision. So as a farmer, I don't really need to wait till there is an onset of fungicide. In case of grapes, we have downy mildew, we have powdery mildew, and various types of diseases attacking the grape crop. So with the help of IoT, farmers are taking a decision in advance. Actually, what do I need to spray in order to avoid the probable onset of the disease? If there is a sufficient nitrogen existing in soil, if there is a sufficient zinc existing in soil, and if IoT lets you know, you don't really need to apply the zinc, go ahead using some other micronutrient. You have enough of zinc inside the soil. And this IoT is helping them out to take the right decisions and bring down the cost of production. So what we foresee actually, by 2030, even small Indian farmer will try having the IoT device installed in his farm, which will really direct him actually how to go ahead with the increment in his farm produce. Next slide, please. Yeah, very exciting. And we already have one of our speakers who has elaborately spoken on the subject. The agribusiness trend number 2, traceability. Farmers by 2030 will improve their relationship with the global and local consumers and will offer enhanced safety and quality, the very much concerned point in time, through the traceability. Now, if you see the, being into the profession, we always keep on asking ourselves, right? Why would somebody accept the technology? It has to be the future ready. Now, why do somebody need traceability incorporated in the supply chain? What is the basic need of the same? And we have been doing various assignments for the various startups and various types of the AgTech startups. Why will somebody accept your technology unless and until there is a space to? Now, on front end, we have a premium customer who is really worried about, if I pay you premium, if I pay you something, am I really buying food or am I buying the poison? Point to be noted. I mean, we have the rampant usage of various types of chemical pesticides and fertilizers being done in the various types of agriculture produce, may it be a vegetable, may it be a fruit. And then now the premium customer started asking, actually, I'm ready to pay you the premium. Will you let me know, please, what is the origin of this particular product, where it is coming from, who is the handler of? So he is really interested actually in getting comfortable in understanding the way and the path traveled by the product, right from origin. Who is the farmer behind the really particular or raising particular crop produce? So by 2030, what we foresee, end-to-end transparency will be the common norm. Farm-to-fork connectivity through traceability, through certification, and through the farmer being online. And the decade will foresee food becoming an increasingly personal subject for households, for establishments, as consumers look for higher standards of trust and safety, which was really been missing till date. Next slide, please. The agribusiness trend number 3. By 2030, what we foresee actually, the agricultural labor in India will contract and move towards higher productivity job, higher up in the supply chain. And so agriculture mechanization will respond to younger farmers and agri startups. So by 2030, in Indian agriculture, will not be having actually the sufficient number of laborers to work. And with this, between 2015 to 2020, we really had AgriTech revolution in India, where we actually have 500 plus AgriTech startups registered, and fortunate to be one of them. And they have been trying actually to serve the masses. And they have identified the areas to serve. By 2030, rural economy will become digitized, stimulating a mass entrepreneurship movement around agriculture technologies. Young generation there and millennial entrepreneurs there with high levels of digital and internet engagement become the techpreneurs of tomorrow, starting advanced precision tech equipment rental businesses. If you see in India today, we have tractors and tillers being given on rent. So by 2030, we are expecting actually drones, robots, IoT devices being given on rent. So there is a great space for agriculture mechanization by 2030. Next slide, please. Yeah, we have the agribusiness trend number 4. These are the 4 trends that my organization has tried mapping. So by 2030, we expect production of high value output, such as leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables, will become more specialized and protected, and will have its own dedicated logistics chains through polyhouse and vertical farming. Now, this has always been a very interesting business model, but nevertheless, it was not utilized to the extent it should have been. So by 2030, what we foresee, captive fruits and vegetable supply chains for cities and major ports, composed of hybrid vertical farms, peri-urban polyhouses, and greenhouses. Also decentralized cold chain that sell through purchase contracts and subscription plans. So there is a great actually opportunity emerging of setting up the polyhouses and vertical farms around metropolitan cities with the dedicated supply chains, and also been supported with the technology. We have actually very good number of startups in Hyderabad city, even in Pune and Mumbai around. We have started such vertical farms and have started delivering their produce right to the consumer with complete traceability. Next slide, please. That is it actually from my side. Thank you for giving me an opportunity for putting my thoughts over here. Over to you, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Session, for that. I mean, I think you've given us a very good overview of startups, for example, looking at the future of agribusiness, a great picture of 2030 that runs a common theme with AI technology and semi or fully autonomous approach. And of course, AI and machine-based learning, the effect of 6G and drone technology. And of course, looking at the Internet of Things in small farms, I found very encouraging your comments on traceability, safety, and quality, and end-to-end transparency. That's very important globally. And of course, your farm-to-fork connectivity. And I like your line whether you're buying food or poison. I think that is a question some people ask. And the future of Indian agriculture in terms of labor moving higher up the value chain and responding to younger farmers and startups, and seeing a rural economy that will be digitalized. And of course, the production of high value output in polyhouses and vertical farming. And maybe one part of Prime Minister Modi's smart cities will be peri-urban farming that you foreshadowed there. So on that note, I think it's a very good time now to turn to our next speaker, who is Kim Russell, the AIBC Agribusiness Advisor and co-owner of Russell Agribusiness Consulting Proprietary Limited. Now, Kim is a very passionate person in relation to agriculture, and he's also the chair and principal consultant of the Jump Foundation. And he's also playing a very active role now in the Australia-India Business Council. And I really am very delighted that we have Kim here now as our next speaker, and very appropriate because it links the themes that are coming through with technology, looking to the future, and what an exciting time and synergy there is between Australian AgTech and Indian AgTech. Over to you, Kim.
Thank you very much, Jim. I think that was a very good introduction. Thank you very much. My name is Kim Russell. I'd like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, the traditional owners and custodians of the land where I live and am speaking from. I'm going to talk about the AgriTech and the dynamic data dilemma. Next slide, please, Vishal. Ownership and storage of data. Number 61 there, I'll come back to later. Just keep that number in mind. The issue of data ownership and its safekeeping is a complex and ongoing one. Farmers will only participate if they trust how and why the data is being used. And that data will have a value for which the farmer must receive clear benefit. The model for an integrated farm management system is a way to implement the required adoption of best management practice. Widespread adoption is essential if environmental targets for farmers, the people they feed and clothe, are to be achieved. But the effectiveness of this model depends on layers of data or within, ultimately, a very significant information warehouse. Next slide, please. Take your minds back to when we started using smartphones. And we ticked all those boxes to allow various people to capture data about what we were doing in our daily lives. We've ended up with a high level of distrust among users of this fantastic technology. What if as farmers, we could build trust rather than gradually lose it? The environment in which we farm is dynamic. Farm data needs to be dynamic too, and managing it is a challenge. Next slide, please. These images were taken in 1998 on the farm I managed, where satellite technology was being used to guide tractors and capture yield to produce yield maps like the one here. We used this data and combined it with financial data to focus on areas of poor performance. On this farm, my neighbour David Catnack and I undertook the first greenhouse gas audits in Australia, probably the world. This was in 1999. We hoped then that spatial data would be the answer to tracking and verifying carbon sequestration done in the normal profitable business of farming and combating climate change. Next slide, please. Vegetable farming at the moment is a little more old school, and capturing things like yield data is more problematic. However, we can use technology to connect what we're doing on the farm in quality assurance with our customers. This phone app we developed to be able to communicate the quality of produce, where it came from, and how close it was to harvest. This data is searchable and linked straight back to the fields where the photo was taken. Next slide, please, Fish. Cotton farming today is incredibly technology and sustainability-driven industry as well. Water efficiency, pest control, disease control, and nutrition, all aimed at quality and yield. These drive the management practices that are promoted within the industry. Next slide, please. Almond growing in Australia is also a very technology-driven industry. It is a profitable industry, and its sustainability depends on how well they manage the resources under their control. The industry employs some of the most modern and sophisticated technology in Australia and indeed the world. Some of this technology is shown here, where the growth of trees and their fruit is monitored using dendrometers, soil moisture meters, and leaf temperature sensors are linked directly to the internet to store and manage this point data. These point data sets are very rich. Add to them the incredible array of spatial data available through phones, drones, airplanes, and satellites. You begin to see how this data can be used to drive efficiency, profitability, and sustainability. In Australia, farmer-driven research groups are an incredibly important part of managing and improving farm practice and profitability. The Irrigation Research and Extension Committee at Griffith has been operating for well over 70 years. Feel free to check out their website. Replicated trials are an important part of the research and development process. The fun really starts when all this data is combined and image processing and data analysis is undertaken. I will mention here, though, that what we need to keep in mind is that this data and analysis and the best practice that is developed from it. Next slide, please, Vish. I'm a bit ahead of myself. It is important to have farmer-driven trials and then extension. Oh, and have I mentioned extension? These trials were undertaken with my colleague, Dr. Mahesh Venkataramaya in West Bengal in conjunction with Stump Jump and BASF, utilising their biodegradable mulch film and compostable polymers to segregate organic waste prior to composting. Next slide, please, Vish. The trials were undertaken this data is an important part, and the actual data collected goes hand in hand with the spatial data. And this data is incredibly important to make the information, turn the data into information. Next slide, please. This is where the fun stuff really begins. Spectral analysis and data science combine to give understanding of what is going on with nutrition, hydration, and influence of different management practices to create new insights. Next slide, please. Importantly, we can gather this data on a scale that can demonstrate performance at the levels from field to catchment to national and international levels. Next slide, please. As a collective and very powerful international level, farming can both adapt to and combat climate change, which has gone beyond a threat to a stark and terrifying reality. I'd like to finish on the point I made earlier. Next slide, please. Notice the number 61 again. Next slide, please, Vish. Next slide, please, Vish. Oh, sorry, go back again. I had another, that one there, yeah. 61 is just a number. It is data. Not until you know that it is my age and that there is some information behind that number, that there is history, stories, knowledge, ambition, relationships, love, happiness, and some sadness. But mostly there is optimism. So data is not just numbers. We need to turn data into information and knowledge about your farm, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Next story, please. Next slide, please. It is only when this data is gathered, stored, processed, and turned into information and used to achieve on-farm objectives in alignment with community objectives that its real value will be realised. And it will be through this type of approach that farmers will meet the challenge of farming profitably and be able to meet environmental and consumer demands. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Kim. And again, it's a much synchronistic speech following up your previous speakers, particularly this time focusing on ownership and storage of data, that the trust that's needed when farm data needs to be dynamic, looking at carbon secretariatship, sustainability, and pest control. And your example of the almond industry is a good one, as well as looking at sensor node integrated packaging and spatial data availability in terms of profitability and sustainability. And it's also good to see our universities like Griffith University in Queensland, as the example you cited, looking at combination of data and, of course, the importance of farm-driven trials, and then looking at soil microbiology, nutrition hydration, and field catchment, both at a national and international level, and highlighting what is a very big issue, which is climate change. And last but not least, how to turn data into information and knowledge. So thank you, Kim, for that presentation. And we've now had a really good presentations from all our speakers, and it's now time for question time. Now, we do have a number of questions. Not all of those questions will be answered at this webinar today. Some of them will be answered afterwards. So let me just kick off one of the questions that are in here, and let's get just an idea from our audience and from our speakers. And so my first question is, as we've listened to everyone, is how is India responding to be part of the renewable energy under AgriTech remit? So can I ask that question to Mr. Karthik and then Mr. Sachin, and then I'll speak for the Australian response. So start with you, Mr. Karthik.
I think overall, as a policy, India has been very proactive on renewable energy, not just in agriculture, but elsewhere. A few decades ago, 90+% of our power source was coal. Today, it's about 65%, and 35% of our power comes from renewables. Specifically in agriculture, solarization of water pumps is an area which is moving quite rapidly. In fact, we operate a few model farms where the water pumps are completely solarized. And in fact, many of our facilities over this year, including collection and distribution centers, will go off grid, and we will be completely on renewable power. So this is common. I think there are multiple options available today. We can wheel renewable power through the grid, or we can go off grid. And we expect to see more of this because the cost curves show that it's become less expensive as well to move to renewables. Thank you.
Mr. Sashin, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, no comment.
No comment. How about back to our Australian end, Dan Winton, you have a comment in relation to that issue in Australia, or is it an issue?
Yeah, no, I don't have a comment on that. Thank you.
Kim Russell, do you have a comment on that?
I was interested to hear the comment about seeing the transition since my first visit to India in 2013, the adoption of solar pumping. One of the problems I saw was that power was fed out to farmers in an intermittent fashion, and it sometimes led to pumps starting and running for longer than they would have intended. So it's a huge issue, and it's very humbling actually to see the level of value chain interconnectivity that's been shown in the presentations today. So we've got a lot to learn from each other.
All right, well, I'll ask the next question to each of our panelists, and it's a very straightforward question, and that is, what is the best future growth for tech startups? What is the future of tech startups in agriculture? Let me kick it off with Con, who is, of course, heading up the chair of the agribusiness. What's your view on that, Con?
Well, it's quite interesting you should say that. Today, Bloomberg set out a release on startups in India. And this year so far, it's sitting at US 8.8 billion. And they think it'll surpass the all-time record of 11.8 billion this year. They're actually calling it startups frenzy. So look, startups is very big in India. I know that. There's a lot of younger people who are giving the opportunity to, let's say, be guided by a lot of farming people. And I think it's tremendous that India itself has the technical ability through the younger people, through their IT. And I think that's going to be a big plus for India.
Thanks for that. Mr. Karthik, any comment on that?
I think Con is right. I think we're seeing a wave of investments into the AgriTech space in the past couple of years. We had a gestation period for about 4 years, but we're now seeing that inflection point. Most startups that are existing see inbound inquiries to invest, and those who are forming up are able to get seed capital quite immediately. This is a bit of a shift since the past, where Series Seed and Series A was easy, but Series B used to be difficult, but now it's become a lot easier.
Dan Winton, your comment?
I think we're going to see greater collaboration across the sector is probably the most interesting and relevant thing in the Australian market, and globally, I'm hoping that same trend will continue. It's not that there hasn't been collaboration in the past, but over the past 12 months, and I think on an ongoing basis, we're going to see more of these companies working with each other, making use of APIs so that data can be generated, transferred, and consumed in wherever it's most appropriate, rather than everyone trying to do everything. So I'm looking forward to that trend continuing.
Mr. Sashin, your view on the tech startups and the future?
Yeah, we foresee actually the great scope. Actually, there are not many things to be done. And to be very frank, actually, both, I mean, pre-harvest and post-harvest space. even in case of farming, we have got a lot many things to be done actually, and the precision agriculture will play a great role over there. And if we foresee actually for the post-harvest, then in post-harvest we have great space for application of the technology. May it be the preservation of a food, or may it be the value addition of a food. So from the platform of MCAB, we foresee a great scope for AgriTech startups in India.
Thank you for that. And Kim Russell, any comment on your end?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I think I agree with Dan. In Australia, there has been some roadblocks to startups and technology and innovation in that sector. And a lot of it's because in our scientific institutions and researchers, bodies and universities, the IP has been sort of held on to, or they try to hold on to that IP so strongly that it takes some time to get out. Nowadays, it appears that startup companies like Dan's, they're out there, they're doing it themselves and interacting with their customers. And I think now universities are showing signs, strong signs, that they are moving more towards that commercialization of research findings and IP that doesn't, shut out the entrepreneurial opportunity for startups.
Thanks for that. And I'll ask, there are several other questions that we will answer, but let me just ask one final question before we start to wrap up this webinar. And that is that we've had a pandemic. We've heard all different comments on it. Let me ask a straight question. How will the agri sector continue to flourish during this pandemic situation, particularly if it continues further? I'll start off with Con and the same sequence.
Thanks, Jim. Look, I think we need to stand still and say, okay, the current size of the population of the world is sitting at 7.9. It's going to go up to 9.7 by 2050. There's going to be all these extra people. Technology, I believe, will step in the way and make life a lot easier for everyone. I think it'll because of digitalization, it'll rapidly get to a point where food and water and the issue of wastage will diminish dramatically with the introduction of new technology.
Right, thank you for that, Con. And Mr. Karthik?
I think the big shift here would be in the commercial activity around agriculture, moving from a contact sport to a more digitally enabled engagement. We're starting to see that today. The farmer producing and harvesting is always a lonely affair, but the exposures to risk happen when they go to the market, to the wet markets to perform the trade. And digitization will play a role in making sure that the farmer does not get unnecessary exposure. The same thing applies at the consumption end as well. So we are seeing an irreversible trend of digitization of the engagements that are happening. We are also seeing a trend of increasing automation so that, manual labor and the inability to, maintain social distancing with intensive manual labor is addressed during the current situation. The former trend will be faster, the latter trend will be a little patchier.
Thanks for that. And can I ask Dan Vincent, your comment?
I think that the larger companies, your CNH Industrials, Deere & Co, are starting to really double down on autonomous. You look at the acquisitions they've made in the past 6 months of startups and some consolidation in that space. I think that's a strong leading indicator that we're going to see fully autonomous vehicles in the very near future. And I know a lot of people have said that in the past, but I think we're actually getting close to it.
Thanks for that. And can I ask Kim Russell, Mr. Sashin, your view on that?
Yeah, if pandemic actually continues, then what we have actually experienced on field over here, we have always been hearing about the digital divide and the role that it has played in plaguing the growth of Indian agribusiness in specific. So many startups of various sorts have been trying actually to pitch into the space and to try and see if they can play a role in bringing down the gap that is there, or the fragmentation. So what I foresee actually from the platform of my center, that many solutions will come forward actually to take out this digital divide that exists between the producer and the consumer. And yeah, that is how it is.
So just a follow-up to that, how do you deal with startups that collapse? That is, they're no longer economically viable, and how many would you estimate that would be in your startup projections?
Yeah, it's very apt actually question that asked. Actually, there would be a great consolidation also happening here, because the decision has always to be the data driven, and unless and until it is data driven, we have the consolidations happening, and that is been happening actually, because many startups are not being able to stay afloat because they just born because of looking at the opportunity that was arising out of the pandemic. But they were not really aligned well with the resources that they have. And then what we foresee actually, it is always better to be a consumer-centric technology. I mean, why do consumers need particular technology to be in place? Why do you need actually replace the existing technology unless and until we have the tangible answer to the one, better actually not proceed with.
Thank you for that. And Kim Russell, your comment?
Yeah, the pandemic, I think, has changed things. 20 years ago, unless you'd been to a country 10 times and visited people, no one took you very seriously. There's a lot of focus on India, and people are going to rely on organisations like the AIBC to serve that incredible introductory role and maintenance of relationships and trust. I think that's probably going to be the biggest outcome from this pandemic.
Thanks for that, and we're right on time actually as we move to wrapping up this webinar. And just before I hand over to Vish Viswanathan, our Make in India chair, I just wanted to foreshadow with all our panelists that when I conclude this webinar, I'll be asking you for 3 words to best describe this webinar from your perspective and perhaps also from the audience perspective. So keep that in mind and reflect on that as we wrap up. And now I'll invite Vish to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Vish. Now you can see on his profile, Vish is one of our most hardworking national industry chairs, as well as been very active previously in the New South Wales chapter as the vice president and active in the New South Wales chapter committee as well. And he's a man of many talents and a really good example of our volunteers in AIBC and how much work they put into it to make a difference to the Australia-India trading relationship. Over to you, Vish.
Thank you very much, Jim. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers. And before I go into thanking you formally, I just got some observations. And Mr. Jim Varghese, the National Chair, has summarized in every one of the speaker the key takeaways. But as I have seen, the really good takeaways, I'll just say one or two from each one of the speakers. Like so from Karthik Jayaraman, we have tech-enabled supply chain, which is a single solution partner. And that's an excellent way of combining the smart systems, IoT, CRM, and everything. That's a great example of how this can be done. And similarly from Mr. Dan Wilson, in the COVID environment, how digital transformation can be done in managing those challenges. And in terms of Mr. Sachin's presentation, we have seen a vision of where the AgriTech is going. And we're seeing a vision of how we can use the 5G and 6G and from a manual to a machine-based advisory service. That's an excellent, I would say, outcome, which is informed us. There are a number of things which he has said also. And similarly from Mr. Kim Russell, the challenge of managing the data and how efficiently we can use from the image processing to improve the performance and monitor the performance, and also to improve the efficiency and sustainability, and also collaboration of data. So in fact, I can go on, and there's so much to learn from each one of the presentations. So I must really thank you, Mr. Karthik Jayaraman, and for your excellent presentation, and thanking, and coming on at a short notice to join our, panel today. And also Mr. Dan Vinson, the CEO and founder of ZFI, who is based in Wagga Wagga, is a very important portion, the rural area. We're also going to talk to Dan on further collaborations, and from a Make in India point of view. And then Sachin has been giving, managing director of Margadarsh Center for Agribusiness. He has been given a lot of insights on what is happening in terms of managing the various startups, plus his vision for the AgriTech, where it is going. And of course, our own advisor, Mr. Kim Russell, whom is always a pleasure to talk every time when he's participating in any of our meetings to learn something, and the kind of things, it's thought-provoking from a use of the data, the big data, what is coming, and how technologies like the spatial analysis and image processing can we need to effectively use. The biggest thing is that we have a lot of challenges, and how do you overcome these challenges and bring out the efficiency in that? So thank you, Mr. Kim, and we look forward to your continuous support and advice. And most importantly, I must thank the sponsor of this today's event, Mr. Pranay Kumar of State Bank of India. State Bank is the premier bank of India, and here they are the event sponsor. And Mr. Pranay, they're doing an excellent service as also the national chair of the financial services, and it's a good collaboration. And thank you very much again. And we also want to thank our all the participants who asked the various questions. And one interesting question I saw, which we'll further discuss with Mr. Jayaraman, and it's about the food waste. And I can tell you there are a few things which, if I just take only 1 minute, between Australia and India, in spite of the COVID, the single sector which is growing is agriculture. And that is bound to go on, grow and grow. And Australia is leading in certain things like in the food wastage, managing this food wastage. So there are opportunities to collaborate on that. So purely from a Make in India point of view, as well as what I would like to propose is some of this takeaways will be really good for us to collaborate with each other, from Australian technology, Indian technology, Australian manufacturer, Indian manufacturer, Australian way of thinking, and how to bring about the efficiency in some of these things, supply chains. It will be a good learning curve to collaborate. And this is the key mantra which we have proposed in the Australia-India Business Council this year as well. So the collaboration is something which we'll do. And apart from this seminar, we will perhaps continue to discuss on this. So that's what I would like to propose. And also, most importantly, I would like to thank our National Chair, Jim Verghese, who has been sort of spearheading the Australia-India Business Council with giving us total freedom and also, ability to run our own webinars and events with full confidence. And then he has been leading with a vision. And then he is also guiding us on many aspects. And so thank you, Mr. Jim. And Con Livisianis, it's a great opportunity to work with you and your team. And now we are going to be looking at more opportunities. Also, thank you for your leadership in the Australia-India Business Enterprise Limited. Some of these agricultural opportunities also will become business opportunities. At the end of the day, we need business-to-business engagements than policy statements. So with that, and the last, not the least, is we must thank the Secretariat who are behind this. Wendy, Vishal, and Silvana, they have been very much behind the whole scenes, and they have put together all these PowerPoint presentations and the Zoom presentations, and they've been behind the success of the Zoom sessions. One important announcement I would like to make is Australia India Business Council is continuously growing its activities in various industry chapters. As part of the agribusiness, we are in need of a project coordinator for our Victoria chapter, and they have, it's like a specific project which they are going to be executing, and then we are looking for a project coordinator. So if any of you, your contacts are able to support this, it will be great. And so we have number of, so if the details are on our slides, but we'll be able to, any of you who are interested, please mail to secretariat@aibc.org.au. But most importantly, please do visit our AIBC website from time to time and look for more events in future. We have ambitious plans for all our industry chapters and also the state chapters they are doing. So there are excellent leaders who are leading some of these industry chapters and the state chapters. We'll be also having a number of other industry chapters will be launched in the near future. And so the next events we are planning is something on the manufacturing side, smart manufacturing, because that is, if you see the industry 4.0 and agreement, it's all basically converging of the technologies. So that's going to happen in September. And then we also have a Women in Business event in October. So once again, thank you so much for this support. And we look forward to your continuous interaction. And if you're not members already, some of you, please do consider becoming member of this great organization. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Vish. And let me now wrap up this webinar by asking each of our panelists to give me 3 words that would, for them, really summarize this webinar and for themselves and for the audience. So let me start with you, Con.
Jim, thank you. It's been a tremendous webinar with, as Vish has said, lots of information that would be beneficial to both Australia and India. In my words, I've learned to be patient. I've learned to have perseverance, and I know that India will have enormous potential.
That's very good. Those are the 3 Ps. Mr. Koenig, your three words.
I'll follow Con with 3 E's. I found this educative, energizing, and exciting. And I can see the possibilities of collaboration already, and we will take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That's excellent. And Dan Vincent, your three words.
Okay, let's stick with the theme. I'll do 3 I's: insightful, informative, and inspirational.
Good.
Excellent. Mr. Sachin, your 3 words.
Is digital divide, data-driven, and consumer-centric.
Very good. Excellent. And Kim, your 3 words. Kim Russell.
You're on mute, Kim.
Are you there, Kim?
Sorry. Yep, I am. I'm going to have to buck the trend there. No alliteration with me. But the interesting thing about that growth of peri-urban agriculture and those connectivity with cities, I think I'm starting to see that here in Canberra very strongly. For example, automation and the connectivity issues.
Thank you. And Vish, your 3 words. Vish, you're there?
Yeah, I'll say that first have the be proactive, have the courage, and collaborate and implement.
Very good. Well, my three words are technology, collaboration, action.
Oh.
Now, I'd like to thank you all. I think it's been a really, really insightful and very informative webinar that I think has provided a great context to increasing the trade and investment in the agribusiness sector. It's a great start, and it's time for action in Australia, for business to business action to increase the trade and investment. And ARBC is very pleased to be part of that process. We've moved to a new level, a higher, exciting level, where all we're interested in is outcomes, results. At the end of the day, it's going to be increased trade and investment. And in that context, we will be discussing the Commonwealth cricket and curling. So on that note, thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. We're exactly on time, and I'd like to congratulate all of you for being very cooperative to make that happen. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thank you.